Good evening and good morning. So good morning in Suva in Fiji and good evening in France, in Lille. Today, the Quarles Foundation, so Mr. Banova, Ms. Kayalal and myself will host a match of day 3 between two teams in Group H. This is for the University of the South Pacific and the Catholic University of Lille. They already had the two matches, and today they will debate on topics they received a week ago, which is connected to more international trade law and the impact as well on developing countries. And for this match, I give the floor to my colleague who will host the match, Mr. Banova.
Thank you very much, and indeed, good day, good morning, and good evening to our participating teams. It is quite a challenging time for both teams, and we really appreciate them helping us to coordinate and to have the match for day 3 at this moment. As my colleague said, the teams received in advance the topic for today's debate, which is that developed nations must provide technology transfer mechanisms to facilitate green trade in developing countries. Of course, we'll find out through the wheel of allocation, the positions, and we'll have the final 5 minutes for preparation. But before that, since this is the last match of this group as well for the teams, for the final introductions of the group phase, first passing the floor to University of South Pacific, Ms. Konelelu.
Bolevinac everyone, my name is Andi Salaseni Manileu, please call me Sala. I am a final year student here at the University of the South Pacific, currently enrolled in a combined degree program with a Bachelor of Law and a Bachelor of Arts. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. For Catholic University of Lille's debate team, Ms. Leclerc.
Hi, I'm Jeanne Lepers, and I'm a first-year student in European law in the Catholic University in Lille.
You're welcome. Passing back to University of South Pacific, Mr. Dunabois.
Hi everyone, my name is Samuel Dunabois. I'm a third year law student at the University of South Pacific under the Bachelor of Law program.
Thank you and welcome. Passing it back to Catholic University of Lille, Ms. Nguyen.
Hello, my name is Jeanne Van Nguyen. I'm a first year student in University of Lille as a law major, and it's an honor to be here.
You're welcome. And for the completion of the introduction for University of South Pacific's 3-member team, Mr. Ram.
Hello, good morning and good evening respectively to everyone. My name is Shivnesh Ram. I'm a third-year student at the University of the South Pacific, pursuing a degree in law and politics. Thank you.
Welcome. Completing the 3-member team also on the side of Catholic University of Lille, Ms. Sampson.
Hello, my name is Manon Sampson. I am also a first-year European student at the Catholic University of Lille.
Thank you, welcome. The two teams are also supported by their coaches. For the University of South Pacific, that is Shivendra Nath and Arunish Permal. For Catholic University of Lille, Ms. Sarah Elsahet and Claire Pesson-Ingvet. And of course, I would like to, on behalf of our organization, thank the 3 judges that will be reviewing this match. I believe after all these previous debates, there will be quite a challenge, perhaps already also with this one. So thank you very much for taking the time and for sharing your feedback. And there really is not much more to say in the introductions. So I'll passing the floor to Professor Levanche to show us the wheel to allocate the positions.
Yes, so I share my screen for the allocation of position. So in a few seconds you will see it. So now you should see the double flags of your countries and institution you represent for this match. There are 2 chances, one chance to be in favor, one chance to be against. The team in favor will be starting with the first introduction. So I start with the randomizer. So that will be the Catholic University of Lille will be in favor of the motion, and we'll start with the first introduction. As a consequence, that will be the University of the South Pacific will be against the motion. So concretely, it means that the Catholic University of Lille will defend the position that developed nations must provide technology transfer mechanism to facilitate green trade in developing countries, while the University of the South Pacific will defend the position that developed nations must not provide technology transfer mechanism to facilitate green trade in developing countries. So now you will have 5 minutes to review your notes and and we'll hear the introduction by the French team. you are done.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. As the time for final preparation is now over, we'll be starting by hearing opening statements. Just a short reminder before we start, you can check for visual cues from the video stream of our timekeeper, Ms. Lal. So if you see a yellow card, it indicates you are at 30 seconds left of your speaking time. And if you see a red card, it means your time is up. Of course, you can comfortably finish your sentences, but it's not recommended to start new ones. And thus, without further ado, Catholic University of Lille's debate team, you have 4 minutes for your opening statements.
Thank you. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable members of the jury, fellow debaters, knowledge is not only worthwhile if it is shared. In the face of climate emergency, one thing is clear. The ecological transitions cannot be prerogative of few nations. It must be a collective effort. But how can developing countries be accepted to build the green economy without the necessary tools? Encouraging their transfer is not a question, but of shared responsibility and economic intelligence. The aim is not to impoverish innovation, but to steer it towards a future where growth and sustainability go hand in hand. First and foremost, this imperative is already grounded in international law. Article 10, for instance, of the Paris Agreement underscores that the development and the transfer of technologies are essential to strengthening the climate resilience of the most vulnerable nations. Similarly, for instance, the Marrakesh Agreement recognizes the necessity of special and differential treatment for developing countries, particularly in access of sustainable technologies. In addition, the agreements on the trade-related aspects of intellectual and property rights in Article 66(2) imposes an obligation on developed countries to encourage their enterprises to transfer environmental sound technologies to the least developed countries. And also, according to the basic legal doctrine, a global public good is defined by 2 main characteristics. First, no rivalry. One person's consumption does not prevent another from using it. And secondly, non-exclusivity. No one can be excluded from access. Thus, this is not a matter of generosity, but a clear obligation under international law, which must nevertheless be explicitly stated in the treaties if we want some result, and this is what we want to argue here. Also, the green economy is a win-win strategy. By facilitating access to clean technologies, we promote the emergence of new markets and sustainable value chains. According to the UNCTA report, for instance, green trade in developing countries could represent several $100 billion by 2030. Ignoring this reality means depriving ourselves of an economic partners and condemning entire markets to stagnation. And to those who oppose these initiatives on the grounds of excessive costs, let us remind them that inaction is formative, and the Court of Justice highlighted that failure to act against global warming could result in state liability. Refusing to share green innovations means forcing developing countries to replicate a polluting and destructive economic model. Yet, there will be no solution to climate change without the inclusions of the most vulnerable nations. And it seems quite selfish for developed countries to deprive developing ones of a green economy, especially when we consider that the lagging economy growth is partially due to the uncontrolled actions of developed countries and the direct consequences of other countries. Technology transfer is therefore neither a burden nor an utopian dream. It is an economic necessity, a moral imperative, and a legal obligation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we pass the floor to the opening statements for the against position, I will just kindly ask everyone, in case you experience a disturbance with the speech of the speaker, so if the audio is not coming through, please close your cameras, so only the camera of the speaker and the timekeeper will remain. All right, then for the opening statement in the against position, University of South Pacific, you now have 4 minutes.
Hello? Nisambul Vinaka, and greetings to the honorable judges, esteemed colleagues, and audience members. We as the negative team oppose the motion that developed nations must provide technology transfer mechanisms to facilitate green trade in developing countries. We advance our stance to the following arguments. I will address the principle of dependency. Shivnesh will elaborate on how forced technology transfer is not the answer. Samuela will discuss the impracticality of implementing technology transfer mechanisms in nations lacking infrastructure, expertise, and finances before Shivnesh concludes by reinforcing our stance. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 6th Assessment Report, Working Group 3, Mitigation of Climate Change, Chapter 16, highlights that while technological innovation and transfer can be beneficial, they also result in trade-offs, including increased dependency on foreign knowledge and providers. This cycle of reliance hinders local innovation and self-sufficiency, which are crucial for sustainable green trade. Excuse me. The Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects on Intellectual Property Rights, or TRIPS for short, in Article 7 emphasizes that intellectual property rights should promote technological innovation. However, over-reliance on such mechanisms risks undermining local capacities, a key aspect for achieving sovereignty in green trade. Article 66 permits least developed countries to delay compliance with TRIPS, promoting the development of local frameworks and sustainable practices rather than dependence on foreign systems. Consider New Caledonia's reliance on France in the Nouméa Accord, which governs its semi-autonomous relationship with the French state. New Caledonia depends on France for governance, defense, and renewable energy solutions, limiting its ability to address environmental challenges independently. Moreover, the principles of sovereignty and equity outlined in Articles 3 and 4 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change reinforce the importance of local capacities. Sovereignty underscores the need for nations to maintain control over the climate policies, technological advancements, and transfers. Equity calls for fair and balanced responsibilities, empowering developed countries to build self-reliant systems rather than depend on external aid. The article is Clean Technology Transfer and Empty Promise, published in 2024 by SDG Action, a platform launched in 2021 under the UN's Decade of Action to accelerate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, highlights how many developing countries condition their climate pledges on receiving external technology and funding, which discourages indigenous solutions. It also showcased China's green industrialization success, achieved through strong local policies, conditions many developing nations are unable to replicate. Finally, we reference climate policy advocate Vicente Paulo Yu, an international lawyer who is an independent consultant for various UN organizations and an expert in sustainable development, international environmental law, and trade. In his 2023 article addressing the climate technology gap in developing countries, Mr. Yu emphasizes that reliance on foreign technology perpetuates cycles of dependency, stifling the growth of local innovation and solutions. Conclusion: reliance on technology transfer from developed nations create a harmful cycle of dependency, stifling innovation. Developing nations must prioritize their own technological advancements to effectively transition to green trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have now heard the opening statement from both teams. We'll now proceed to the first round of rebuttals, starting with the first rebuttal by the Catholic University of Lille's debate team. You have 2 minutes.
Fellow debater, thank you. You mentioned that developing nations might become dependent on foreign technology. But I would like to say that developing nations do invest in green foreign technologies, but initial access to core technologies is essential to jumpstart domestic innovation. I'm basing this argument on Article 4.3 of the UNFCCC, which legally binds developed nations to, and I quote, provide new and additional financial resources for sustainable technology in developing countries. For example, Brazil's biofuels industries initially relied on the United States ethanol technology transfers. And today, Brazil leads the world in biofuel innovation. Furthermore, we believe that developed nations must provide technology transfer mechanisms to facilitate green trade in developing countries. We argue that green technology transfer stimulates economic growth in recipient countries by creating skilled jobs, boosting industrial productivity, and attracting investment. And this aligns with endogenous growth theory, which emphasizes the role of knowledge and innovation in long-term economic expansion. Article 16.2 of the Convention on Biological Diversity, actually underscores the necessity for developed countries to facilitate access to and transfer of technologies to developing nations on favorable terms. I would like to add that this technology transfer would reduce dependency on volatile fossil fuel markets as well, which would stabilize global supply chains by diversifying energy sources, and developing countries could mitigate economic shocks and enhance trade sustainability. For example, India's adoption of wind energy, supported by European firms like Vestas, reduced coal imports and improved energy security, according to the IA 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to hear the first rebuttal by the University of South Pacific. You two have 2 minutes.
Before I begin, I'd like to confirm if I'm audible.
You are.
Thank you. Honorable judges, esteemed opponents, and respected audience. We agree that the climate change is a crisis and that developing nations need better technology. But the question is, how do we achieve this? We cannot simply rely on climate resilience as mentioned by the opposing team. First, we must understand that green technology isn't stockpiled in government warehouses. It's developed by private companies investing billions in research and development. Without patent protection, what incentive remains to innovate? In particular, looking at the TRIPS agreement, looking at Article 27, this safeguards patents for all fields of technology, while Article 31 allows compulsory licensing only in specific cases, preventing arbitrary takeovers that could stifle progress. Instead of forced transfers, TRIPS enables negotiated technology sharing, balancing innovation with access. Second, to consider, if developing nations are simply handed technology, will they build expertise to sustain a green economy? China's renewable energy rise proves that strategic investment, not dependencies, is actually key. Initially benefiting from technology transfers, China then heavily invested in research and development, becoming a global leader in global solar and wind energy. This is the model that we suggest that developing nations should follow. The solution is investment, collaboration, and fair trade, not forced transfers. Developing nations must attract investors for joint ventures and implement policies that encourage organic transfer of technology. As Barack Obama once said, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. Developing nations must lead their own green transition, not wait for handouts. Let's protect innovation, support self-reliance, and foster a competitive green economy. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear the second rebuttal for the in favor position by Catholic University of Lille's team. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Just making sure you can hear me. Excellent. Thank you very much. So this transfer of technologies must not be seen as undermining national sovereignty. It is a question of responsibility and climate justice. This transfer must not be seen as it must be seen as an aid and not as a restraint. The mechanism transfers are so that countries can develop themselves without worrying about building their own green technology mechanisms. It is a base for further development. As we support the motion 4, we support its terminology, specifically the use of the term must. The term must illustrates a need for developed countries, thus an obligation to provide is born under the principle of responsibility and cooperation. Despite the provisions on technology transfer included in the UNFCCC falling under soft law, the UNFCCC itself is a binding international agreement for its signatories, as it provides general obligations such as Article 4.5 stating that developed countries shall take steps to facilitate technology transfer for developing nations. The term shall suggests a strong commitment, and that is what we strive for, commitment to climate justice. The stance is defended by Philippe Sands and Jacqueline Peel, for example, in Principle of International Law, and they argue that developed nations have a legal and moral duty under international law to aid in the sustainable development of developing countries. And famous case law examples, such as legality of the threat of or use of nuclear weapons 1996, show that the ICJ acknowledges state responsibility in preventing environmental harm, reinforcing the duty of wealthier nations to assist each other. Finally, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities recognizes that developed nations must take greater responsibility in addressing climate change. Without technology transfer, developing countries risk being left behind in the transition towards a green economy, exacerbating further economic inequalities. Furthermore, how could developed countries selfishly advocate for green energy and ecological transition without fostering the necessary mechanisms for the countries that they have previously impoverished? The argument for an economic burden can be debunked, as we must weigh the ups and downs on an international scale. Adopting green technologies contributes to economic resilience by creating green jobs, improving energy security. For instance, the Africa Renewable Energy... Forgive me, I wasn't aware. Thank you very much.
Apologies. Just a short reminder, please keep the timekeeping of view. And for the second rebuttal for the position against University of the South Pacific, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Before I begin, can I just confirm that I'm audible?
You are.
Honorable judges and audience, we thank all opponents for the arguments they've raised. However, we take note of a few points from our opening rebuttal. While we do agree with the aim of combating climate change, we ask that we understand the viability behind these developing nations maintaining these green technologies. We also take note of a few points from our second rebuttal. We also asked on there are a few references being made to some work. There are a few pieces of work that have been cited. We just like to ask on the credibility behind these sources and how effective they are behind their argument. Now, with that being said, I urge everyone to consider the difficulty and practicality for developing nations in implementing green technologies with respect to the lack of infrastructure, the lack of expertise, and limited financial resources. Now, a 2016 research report published by the Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies titled Moving Forward with SDGs Implementation Challenges in Developing Countries compiled findings on the challenges developing nations face when trying to implement sustainable measures, emphasizing the lack of coordination among government institutions, inadequate data collection systems, and the need for greater capacity building to implement sustainable practices. In 2014, the Intergovernmental Committee of Experts on Sustainable Development Financing and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, they reported that developing countries would need between 3.3 trillion to 4.5 trillion per year to finance basic infrastructure, food security, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and health and education. Now, it is clear that mandating developed nations with technology transfer mechanisms is challenging when concerning in terms of its implementation in facilitating green trade for developing nations. Thank
you. We'll now enter the last stage of the debate. So for the conclusion in the favor position, Catholic University of Lille's team, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. While you mentioned that developing nations might lack infrastructure to use advanced green technology, I would say that developing nations cannot afford to wait until infrastructure improves. Technology transfer must happen simultaneously to prevent long-term fossil fuel dependency. For example, the Paris Agreement in Article 10.6 recognizes the need for cooperative action on technology development and transfer to prevent reliance on outdated energy sources. For example, South Africa's Just Energy Transition Partnership in 2022 actually received $8.5 billion in green tech financing from developed nations. And without this aid, coal dependency would have continued for decades. Ladies and gentlemen, the urgency of our time demands decisive action. The climate crisis is not a distant threat, it is a present reality. Developed nations must provide technology transfer mechanisms to facilitate green trade in developing countries, not as an act of charity, but as a matter of obligation and enlightened self-interest. The legal foundations are irrefutable. For example, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, Paris Agreement, UNFCCC, TRIPS, all underscore the duty of developed nations to lead in its resolution. Turning away from this responsibility would not only violate international agreements, but betray the fundamental ethics of global cooperation. Technology transfer is not a loss for developed nations. It is an investment in shared prosperity. It creates new markets, trains global trade, fosters sustainable economic development for all. But beyond law and economics, there's something even more profound at stake: humanity itself. What kind of world do we wish to leave behind? One where developing nations are shackled to outdated, polluting industries, perpetuating cycles of poverty and environmental destruction, or one where all nations, regardless of historical disadvantage, I agree, have the tools to build a sustainable future. Developed nations stand at a crossroads. They can either hoard innovations, deepen inequality, and accelerate climate catastrophe, or they can embrace the responsibility, honor the commitments, and ensure that no nation is left behind in the Green Revolution. The answer is clear. The time for debate is over. The time for action is now. Failure to act is not an option. The world is watching. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. We'll now hear the concluding statements for the against position. University of South Pacific, you two have 2 minutes.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, esteemed colleagues, and respected audience, as we conclude this debate, it has become evident that mandating developed nations to provide technology transfer mechanisms for green trade in developing countries is neither practical nor effective. We have shown you that mechanisms fostering dependency hinders the development of local innovation and self-sufficiency. Developing nations must focus on building their own capacities instead of relying on external handouts. By handing over technology, we risk creating a cycle where developing countries remain dependent on foreign aid, unable to sustain green economies independently. Additionally, we've demonstrated that the challenges of inadequate infrastructure, limited expertise, and resource constraints make the implementation of these mechanisms impractical. External solutions cannot address the unique needs of each nation. Instead, developing countries must adopt strategies and prioritize self-reliance, collaboration, and investment in local innovation. Furthermore, the principles of sovereignty, as highlighted by the opposing team, and equity emphasize the importance of allowing nations to govern their own progress. Forcing technology transfers undermines these principles, restricting autonomy and stifling the organic development of green industries. A sustainable future requires empowering nations, not subjecting them to dependency on external mechanisms. Hence, we submit that mandating technology does not create real solutions. It creates reliance. Developing nations must lead their own green transitions through innovation, investment, and strategic partnerships. Let's advocate for self-reliance and sustainable progress for all. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. We have now heard the concluding statements from both sides of from both teams. You can all now relax. You are no longer graded after this part. As always, the judges of your match will have time to review and submit the scorecards for your teams. Of course, now we have a bit of opportunity to do, as per tradition, a short round of feedback on how you found this debate, the research on the topic, and perhaps if you had different approaches from your previous group-based debates to this one, or maybe if you developed a certain rhythm in your preparations. So starting first, I will give the floor to Catholic University of Lille. Ms. Lepers, how was the debate for you? Perhaps how was the preparation?
Did you it was by defining the fairness and the ecological approach. So the approach for preparing this match was more to how comply these two, but it was really interesting and really enrichment. And well done to the opposing team who played a great match. And also thank you for to the foundations for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. For the University of South Pacific, Ms. Konelevo, how was the debate and the preparation for your team?
Sorry, can you guys hear me? Okay. For us, the preparation was a lot because the thing is, we had a very busy week because we have stuff outside of school that was also happening the same week. So trying to balance that and trying to find time along with trying to do all our units was hard, but we really tried our best. It was a very interesting topic. The Pacific, we do advocate for green trade and stuff, so it's very interesting. The debate was lovely as always. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Catholic University of the Ms. Nguyen. How was the debate for you? The topic, perhaps, were you familiar with it before the debate?
I was not familiar with the subject before the debate, and I actually learned a lot. Also, I would like to thank the opposing team. You did a really great job. I love to exchange with you. Yeah, so that was very interesting, and I'm really proud of our research so far.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Tenabua, how was it for you? Were you familiar with the topic before? How did you experience the debate?
Thank you. It was an interesting topic. I had some knowledge of it from high school, but mostly surface level. It's nice to really dig deep into the research. And for this third match, we really started to have a rhythm of things, especially from the past mistakes. I also thank our friends from Catholic University. It was nice hearing from you ladies.
Thank you very much. For Catholic University of Lille, Ms. Sampson, how was the debate, the topic perhaps, and did you hear maybe some familiar arguments from the opposing team during the debate to the ones you encountered during research?
No, absolutely. The debate was very, very enriching. I mean, the topic was very precise. I mean, so research was quite difficult because we had to sort through a lot of different information and find different sources. But yes, funnily enough, our opposing speech was rather similar. But it was a very enriching experience. And thank you to the University of the South Pacific. They did a really, really great job.
Thank you. Mr. Round from University of South Pacific, how was the debate for you? And did you maybe hear some familiar arguments from Catholic University of Lille's presentations?
Yep. The debate went well in terms of the arguments. The arguments sounded quite similar, especially to what we were having in our research, and the research was more closely linked to us, and I think the team and I here can agree because we live in the Pacific. So these ideas and these topics have a strong sense of emotion associated to us. But even if we were on the other side of the argument today, we would have had given similar arguments. But once again, thank you for the team. Even as a French university making a stand on this topic, and even us here in South Pacific hearing what you had to say, it felt nice. It felt like you were as if one of our own saying that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for sharing. Of course, you can find each other on the posts during the announcement of your teams and also for the debate itself and also on the results. But there's also a bit of possibility here to network. And on that note, I'm passing the floor to Ms. Lal, who will be our host for this last part of the meeting.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your arguments. It was very interesting listening to all the points raised, and good job to everyone. So now we're moving on to the more fun portion of the debate, which is not the debate, but the call, which is the networking aspect. So the first question is more related to your legal careers. So as we're all law students here, I'm sure that you have experienced a wide range of areas during your study. So with this, is there a particular area of law that you are interested in pursuing? Perhaps starting with Catholic University, Miss Sampson?
All of our law careers for myself, Genevieve and Jan are quite young. We are only first years and we are all 18. But I still have an idea of what I'd like to do. I would like to, in an ideal world, work on defending water rights. Well, that's kind of my dream. But except for that, we've only done constitutional law, family law, and civil law. And it's only been a semester, so we don't know much yet, but we're ambitious.
That's amazing to hear, and all the best. Now from the University of the South Pacific, Mr. Tuinambua, please.
Thank you. For me, the past 3 years of my law study, probably something into criminal law. I find it really interesting. Various parts of the branch of law that I really think I could contribute to. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Ms. Lepers, even if you're still a first year, is there any area you're interested in?
Yes, as Manon said, we are like beginners in law domains, but I would like to work in the human rights domain, and same for Mr. Wam. The criminal aspects of law just really interested me, but we have a lot of work to do, but we are ambitious. Thank you.
That's lovely to hear. Great to see the commonality there. Miss Ngonolevu, please.
Well, since I'm in my final year, I've had a few thoughts. Since I have a BA in geography, I was gonna use for land laws, especially because in the Pacific, that's a very, very big issue because if you don't know, the land is considered a huge part of who we are. We don't see it as a resource; we see it as a living being. So that's something I would really love to work on. Other areas of law are women's rights. I'm a very staunch advocate, as my fellow teammates would know. And yeah, international law, because I also have a minor in French for my BA. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was really nice listening to your range. Could we have Miss Nguyen, please?
Yes. So as my colleagues said, indeed, we're only first years, so I don't really know what I want to do in the future, but I'm interested in criminal law or international law or family law, so I still don't know yet.
That's all good as well. Thank you. I'm sensing a commonality in criminal and international law in this call, so looking forward to that. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Ram, what about you?
Well, it's a bit of everything. I'd like to get my hands into everything: criminal, constitutional, family law. But in an ideal world, yes, I'd like to get into human rights, international law, and also have my hands dipped in commercial law as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so now for the final question. This is more relating to the cultural events that happen in your city. So if the opposing team were to visit your city, what cultural events would you like them to attend? So perhaps starting off with Catholic University. I see Miss Lapers seems excited. So perhaps if you could get us started. Thank you. Actually, I don't really know just like that, but just related to the Catholic University, like 1 week ago, we have the 150 years of the Catholic University. So it was like a party day in the Catholic in the university. It was quite great. But in France, when one of my favorite cultural day, it's the La Fête de la Musique, the musical day, and it's just a day where all the people just enjoy the music in the street, and it's really great, and it's one of the best day of the year actually. How exciting. So La Fête de la Musique and the 150 years sounds exciting. Could we have Mr. Twinambua, please? What would you tell the opposing team to visit if they do come to Suva?
You come to Suva. Definitely come for any rugby games. That's basically part of the Fijian culture. I'm sure it's also familiar to you in France. Just the atmosphere, just seeing the people and the passion for the sport. I'm sure you'd enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The rugby games sound lovely. Could we have Miss Nguyen, or perhaps something different from Miss Lapers?
Well, actually, I was thinking the same. If you go to Lille or any cities in France, actually, it is celebrated the Fête de la Musique, and it's amazing. It is amazing. I'm originally from Paris, and you can celebrate in the most craziest places that you would usually have to pay to get into, and at that time is usually open to everyone. And yeah, it's in the summer as well, so it's beautiful and warm.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Could we hear from Mr. Ram, please?
Well, I'd like to say two things. One, yes, you have to, if you're in Fiji, you have to come and watch a rugby match. Over here, it's a totally different a totally different dynamic, where the spectators become the coach, we become the next player. We start dictating everything. It's a lot for us. There's a lot of emotions involved. So if you miss a conversion, you miss a try. There's there's a lot on you. So until and unless you watch a rugby match played in Fiji, only then you get to realize just how much of a big deal it is. But apart from what Sam said, if you were here in the country and if you were to be given an experience through a cultural event, I'd like to perhaps invite you guys to the Festival of Colors. So in the Hindu calendar, we have this festival of colors called Holi. It's of course there is some significance behind it, but being past that significance, it's a festival whereby you gather around, you eat sweets, you drink, and you basically play with powdered colors. And so by the end of the day, you go home looking like a colored baboon, per se.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ram, for highlighting Holi and the intense rugby games. Finally, could we have Miss Sampson from Catholic Uni, please?
It's rather hard to go after that. But I myself am a bit of a cinephile. I love the cinema. And similarly to Fête de la Musique, we also have Fête du Cinéma, which is to celebrate French culture, French cinema, which is a massive part of our patrimony, of our culture. So during which almost all cinemas in France, the tickets are really cheap. You can go see films. There are actors that come. It's my favorite personally.
Thank you so much. And finally, Miss Nonalevu, sorry. What cultural events would you invite them to?
Okay, there's a few. I don't know, in the Pacific, a lot of culture, customs, and myths and legends, a lot of them are still events. For instance, in Fiji, you know how prawns, when they're cooked, they're red, right? So we have 2 places in Fiji where we find red prawns, and it's considered sacred. And no, you're not allowed to eat it, not allowed to catch it. In fact, they say if you take it, you get cursed. So that's found on the island of Vatulele and the village of Naweni, which is on Vanua level, the 2nd biggest island in Fiji. Another interesting cultural event I had discussed in the previous matches, and is the fire walking. So again, in Fiji, we have the specific island of Banga, which is off the coast of Viti level. That's where Suva is based. So on this island, there's only a group, a tribe of people that are allowed to walk on red hot stones. So they will like put the red hot stones in an underground oven, and they will heat it up, and it's really hot. And this particular tribe are the only people in Fiji that can walk on it. And they walk and they're completely unharmed. And apparently science still can't explain why. Why are these particular group of people only allowed to walk on the red hot stones? Some other cultural events in Fiji, we have a Fiji Day, which is the day we celebrate independence from Great Britain. It's a lovely event. Everyone goes all out. The food, the blue, you just see blue everywhere. We have various events leading up to the 10th of October, which is the day we celebrate. So it's a fun thing. If you come down to Suva around that time, it's a big celebration. Everyone just goes all out. It's all the food, I swear. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both teams for participating in this activity. We've learned about a lot of new events, and hopefully if you two manage to visit the other city, you'll try one of these events. And of course, please stay connected to each other if you'd like via LinkedIn. And yes, handing it back over to Ms. Urbanova. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely hearing you to share the opportunities that you might experience and that you might invite also the opposing teams to. Apologies, it's the flu season here in Europe. Also, it's been a pleasure and an honor to be a witness to your debates during this group phase and to your progress from day 1 to day 3. Of course, we'll announce and share with you the results as soon as possible. However, the results of the group phase itself will be announced during whole competition mid-edition event, specifically a mid-edition networking event, which will be held in April. It will be also a space where we announce the final teams that continue into the next stage of the competition. So the 16 best teams, meaning the 2 best teams of each group. And a bit more on those specifics by Professor Laurent, who will also close off today's session.
Yes, so that was a pleasure. So I'm very fortunate myself to have been in both cities. So in Suva I've been, and I've been in Lille. So yes, I heard as well about the firewalking on this island in the south of Fiji. I was in Pacific Harbour exactly, not far from Suva. And yes, so concerning the networking event, that will be indeed in mid-April. We call it midterm competition. You will be with all the other teams, and as well we'll have a little quiz. So it is actually an activity we have, and for this time it will not be per team but per student, so all students will be able to participate. And we'll of course as well announce some other elements which will be in the second part of the competition, particularly yes, the visits and as well all these elements we have around the finals. So yes, there are still some match for the group phase next days from other groups, particularly on Tuesday. Your 2 other opponents, the University of Malaya and the University of Maryland, Tuesday in night for us, but it will be during the day for most of you outside of Europe. So they will have their match, and that will conclude the group phase for the group H. So the very last match for the group phase from all the other, I would say, groups will be on the 3rd of April because of, for academic terms reasons, let's say, this match had to be moved to the 3rd of April. So yes, and after the 3rd of April is when we'll, of course, disclose more about the midterm competition let's say, event for networking. So that was a pleasure again. Many thanks for your match. It was great to see as well the evolution from the day 1 to this day 3 match. I hope that you have noticed as well that there is an evolution. And we thank as well the 3 judges who will be watching and rewatching the match to provide the score sheets, and then we'll provide to you as soon as we have them. Many thanks in Lille, many thanks. So have a good night in Lille, have a good rest of the Saturday in Fiji, and we keep in touch, of course. Thank you very much. Thank you.